Anytime you start thinking about the best way to improve your business, the first thing you need to do is analyze. That's what I always say. And the best way to analyze your marketing going forward is to look at a SWOT analysis. So SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's a great way to get a holistic view of exactly where you are so that you can understand where to improve and how. So today I'm going to take you through what it is, how to put it together, and once you have put it together, actually how to use this thing so that you get the best out of it and improve your company in the making. So if that sounds good to you, make sure that you subscribe and like and comment and hit that bell and all that stuff, and let's get started. Okay, so a SWOT analysis can be broken down into two different sides, right? There's an internal assessment and then there's an external assessment. The internal assessment looks at the strengths and the weaknesses, and the external assessment looks at the opportunities and the threats. So the internal assessment, you're really looking inside of the company to understand exactly what things are strongest or weakest, as I said, to understand where you can capitalize there on the inside, because these are the things that you have the most control over. Whereas an external assessment, that's your opportunities and your threats, those are the things that you have a little less control over. It might mean monitoring, it might mean understanding how to use your team to capitalize on things. That's where your opportunities and your threats will lie. So let's start with the internal factors. Your strengths are, this is your competitive advantage. This is what you're best at, your unique selling proposition, whatever you want to call it. This is what makes your company successful. So how can you capitalize on it more? Understand on the base elements what it is that you're doing really well. So are you the best photographer in the area? Does that mean that you understand best how to take the best pictures, you get the most emotion out of them? Whatever that means, are you the best photographer in the area? And if so, how can you capitalize on that? Can you market better? Can you meet more people and network better? What does that mean? Another example might be that you have a highly skilled team. You're a SaaS company and you just have the best programmers on the market, the best you could ask for. Does that mean that you can capitalize on them by getting more out of them or pushing them a little harder or treating them better? What does that mean? Weaknesses. So weaknesses are these parts of your business that need to be fixed. They're things that maybe someone could exploit, but you're more interested in just understanding how you can improve by understanding the weakest parts of your business. Every business has them. Don't lie to yourself, okay? So what you want to focus on here are your people. You want to focus on the resources that you have, your systems, and your procedures, what kind of procedures you have in place. So for instance, are you like a hairdresser or you have a hairdresser that works for you and that hairdresser can't cut hair? Maybe that would be a problem. That's kind of a weakness. Or maybe you are a small company, let's say a SaaS company again, there's 10 people working for you, but your corporate structure is so big that the lowest person on the totem pole doesn't feel like they can talk to you, the CEO, even if you're in the same room, they have to send you a Slack message. I mean, that's a little ridiculous. So maybe those procedures are actually hurting your productivity, hurting your team cohesiveness, and keeping you from being able to succeed. But what you want to understand is, where am I weakest so that I can understand how I can improve on these areas first. So those are your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's look at your opportunities and your threats, your external side. Okay, opportunities. These are the things to consider investing your time in because they might be right on the horizon. They might be coming up really soon, but it's something that if it's in your niche and it makes sense for you to pay attention to, you could really get huge gains out of. So a couple of examples for this. The government lowers import tariffs on aluminum and you happen to sell aluminum screen doors. Well, you can lower your prices and raise your revenue because you're not paying as much in import tariffs, and it makes it a lot easier for you to bring that in, right? Or let's say a competitor's contract is expiring soon on a dream client of yours, and you really want to get this contract, so you know that this contract is coming up for this competitor, so you can be ready to react and maybe make a better deal and get in there and kind of steal that away. So that's just kind of the nature of business, right? If you can find that opportunity, you can jump in there and get it. But I also want to say that what I just mentioned were both huge things. It doesn't have to be huge. Even small little things can have a huge impact on your opportunities and on your business, right? So pay attention to the big things and the little things here, and you'll get better outcomes. And then threats, these are things to monitor. So it's not that there's anything to do necessarily right away, but you do need to be aware of all of your threats so that you can react if something big happens with them. So a couple of examples might be 10 years ago, we knew that electric cars were coming, but the petrol gas industry didn't seem to do much about it. I mean, petrol gas is still doing well, but electric cars have made a dent, and maybe if they had been aware of that threat, they could have reacted faster and they could have done something. I'm not saying that petrol is a better way to go, but I am saying that as a business threat, it was a problem for petrol not to react to electric cars more directly than they did. And then the second thing is maybe economic conditions are getting better, and so now employees are more expensive and they can leave whenever they want, and it's much easier for them to find a new job. So you need to find ways, even if you can't improve the salary that they get, to make them want to stay around, right? So that is a threat that you need to be aware of and maybe react to it as it comes around. Okay, so let's talk about how to put this whole thing together. So well, the first thing we want to do is establish a baseline. So you want to talk to probably a few trusted people, that's employees, that's outside the company, and understand where do people think your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. Where do you think they are? And that's the baseline, okay? And then you want to gather as much data as you can. So internally, what that means is talking to as many people as you can. If you have management and employees, then talk to them, get really detailed information. This is why people do an anonymous 360 review, by the way, because then they can get more anonymous information and they don't have to worry about people feeling like they're being outed for saying something negative. You want that really raw, full-throated feedback. Otherwise, you feel like if somebody's holding back, they're afraid to say something, and that might be the linchpin that's really going to save you. And also, you want to look at customers. Customers are really actually very important, even though it sounds like it's an external factor. They bring the money, right? So if they're not there and they're not part of the conversation for how you can internally improve things and how they're seeing things, then you might be missing a big piece of the puzzle, right? So that's going to give you your first and best insight. And then you want to look at the hard numbers. So what are your KPIs? What are your goals? How do those differ? So do you have an ROI goal of 1.8 and you're actually getting 1.2? Why is that happening? Why is your cost per acquisition so low? I mean, it could be anything, right? But you want to understand those hard numbers, and you want to understand why they're so different, and you want to look very granularly at if there's something that's happening that's different, right? So if we're talking about your website, then you would want to look at the traffic and the sources and what specific channels are having problems, etc. And then when you're looking at external factors, you want to look for megatrends. These are things that are affecting all markets. So obviously the one right now is coronavirus as of the making of this video, and it's affecting markets all over the place, right? So everything basically except something medically related seems to be affected right now. So you want to understand how that's affecting everybody so that then you can understand how it's affecting your industry, right? So look at industry reports, you can research the market and the geo and the target that you have. You can buy reports if you have the money for it. Look at census data, local chamber data, news sources are very helpful here. All of this information is going to be really helpful for understanding externally how people are handling it, even your competitors, by the way, because they can be the best indication a lot of the time as to how people are handling it. And then that's going to help you to react in the appropriate way. I do want to caution you, by the way, while we're on this topic, when you're thinking about your weaknesses and your opportunities, don't get them confused, okay? Because weaknesses are things that are internal, that are like damaging you and that you need to fix, that I would say are more urgent. While opportunities are things that are outside your company, again, that you can take advantage of, that you can improve on. So if somebody is angry, right, and they're screaming at you and you think that they have anger management issues, that's probably a weakness, not an opportunity. All right, so how do we actually use this? We're gonna start with either weaknesses or opportunities. Now the reason that I say either is because it's very situationally based. I typically say that you wanna go for your weaknesses first, and the reason is because even small weaknesses can get worse over time, right? And so if a weakness is getting worse and it's gonna possibly hurt your business, like things like a toxic environment inside your business could really be damaging your business more than you realize. It could be taking the wind out of people, they don't wanna work anymore, etc. So that could be a huge issue, right? So we wanna be really careful about not letting our weaknesses get too bad. And so in most situations, if you can, go for the weakness first. But otherwise, the opportunity really might be the place you need to go. And the situation where that might be the case is if it's a fleeting opportunity or if it's something that's coming up super quick and you need to get yourself in gear or you're gonna miss it, right? And if you're not in that situation where you're gonna miss it, then you can go for the weaknesses. But if you are in a situation where this is going really, really fast, then you should go for that opportunity first, as long as those weaknesses aren't gonna be super damaging in the short term. And then third, in any situation, is your threats. So even though you don't have anything to do on these, you still need to be very aware of them. So always stay aware of them so that if somebody takes a move on one of those, you can be ready to react in an instant. And then finally, strengths. Strengths isn't at the bottom because it's less important than the others. Strengths are at the bottom because they're already your competitive advantage. They're already the thing that you're winning on. And the idea here is to improve on them. So if you can find ways to shore up your business first and to go after those opportunities, especially if those opportunities benefit your strengths, that's gonna be a better way to go first. And then strengths, finding a way to really push those is the lowest priority, but still nonetheless important. All right, guys, so there you go. Make sure that you actually use this. That's the last point I have for you today. Because if you are just writing this down on a piece of paper and then you leave it on the desk and let it collect dust, you've wasted your time. There was no reason to do it at all. So first you build this SWOT analysis, then you put it into your plan with all of the learnings that you have. You can now understand where are my weaknesses and how can I build that into my plan to shore those weaknesses up as fast as possible so that I can make sure that I'm as successful as possible. Same for strengths and opportunities, being aware of those threats, etc. So that is the way that you're gonna be successful on this. And if you just sit on it and do nothing, then it's just gonna get worse and you're gonna fall apart and you're not gonna know why. So make sure that you not only put this SWOT together, but try it out and then let me know in the comments how that went for you. Also make sure that you like and subscribe if you haven't already and hit that bell, and I will catch you next time.